So welcome to this lecture series on microbiology. In order to study the unity, we must know how microbes originated. And microbes originated in the form of first life forms. The earth originated around 4.5 billion years ago, and it was from the sun, and after the earth was formed, it was a burning mass of gases. And gradually it cooled down, and as it cooled down, it liberated a lot of vapor, and actually that precipitated in the form of rain, and that cooled down the earth's surface. And at the next point, there was some microspheres created, which are nothing but specific areas referred to as microcosms. And these microcosms, you can see, are specific center or reaction center where life forms were formed. And these microcosms produced the first life form. And these life forms were in the form of a particular nucleic acid or the unit of life surrounded by cytoplasm and bound by a definite membrane. And the theory that explained this origin from inorganic life form to organic life form is known as abiogenesis. And after the first life form was created, from there they produced the complex life forms. This is called biogenesis. The origin of first life form is by the theory of abiogenesis. And this abiogenesis can be explained by the famous experiment by Urey and Miller. And as you can see in this slide, that there was a discharge tube where there was a mixture of methane, ammonia, water and hydrogen, and electric discharge was given with the help of two electrodes, and because of this electric discharge it created a complex jelly-like mass of protein. And this protein was considered to be the first form of life. The theory of biogenesis, which was actually proposed by Louis Pasteur, it stated that the first life form was a life, and then from this life form the other forms were created. It definitely doesn't explain how that first life was created. A particular cell is having a definite nucleus and there is a membrane. So this structural feature is present in all life form, and definitely these life forms are not visible to naked eye. Microbiology is considering all these microbes whose size is not more than 100 micron. What is 1 micron? It is 1000 part of 1 millimeter. So you can very well imagine that a particular bacterial cell which is even smaller than 100 micron is having different structure where there is a membrane or there is a cell wall and there is a cytoplasm and all different organelles present within. They are in the order of even smaller than micron, that is angstrom or nanometer, which are smaller units. The microbes or the microbial forms, they all have a definite structure, and that structure is there is a outer membrane or an outer wall with a cytoplasm inside. There is a nucleus, there are different organelles, and this pattern is true for majority of the microbes. And when we come to the two major types of cell, we have two types. One is the eukaryotic cell and the other one is the prokaryotic cell. As you can see in this slide, this is a typical example of a eukaryotic cell where there will be a cytoplasm and at the same time there will be nucleus, and what is important, there will be large number of membrane bound organelles present, and each of these membrane bound organelles being smaller than the nucleus, they are not really visible even under the microscope, but yet they play a very important role. Like say for example, a chloroplastid will help in photosynthesis, a mitochondria will help in respiration, an endoplasmic reticulum will bring about the compartmentation within the cell, but definitely these structures are not always present in a prokaryotic cell. This prokaryotic cell is a simple bacterial cell or a cyanobacterial cell where first of all you can see there is no discrete nucleus. The genetic material is dispersed all along the cell and it is represented by the nucleic acid. But definitely there will be cell wall, there will be other different structures present as cytoplasmic projection. And these projections normally they are in the form of pili, in the form of flagella, in the form of fimbriae, and at the same time there is no discrete membrane bound mesosome is present, there is no distinct membrane bound mitochondria. because mitochondria is absent, there must be some other organelle which will carry out respiration. So its place is taken by mesosome.
So can you please explain about the difference between flagella and pili?
Yeah, you have to look at this particular figure. You can see that these smaller projections are pili and this big projection is flagella. So a flagella usually is much longer and a pili a smaller projection. A flagella will help in locomotion, but a pili will help in attachment. And particularly this attachment will be required when the bacterial cell is reproducing, that is sexual reproduction of the bacterial cell. And another important structural feature is there. Flagella is formed of a protein called flagellin, whereas pili is formed of protein called pilin. Okay, so you have understood the difference between a prokaryotic cell and a eukaryotic cell. They are structurally so similar, but yet they are so much different. Why different? Because of their structural hierarchy. You can very well see in the previous slide that so much complex structure all in a single cell, and here relatively simpler structure, but definitely in a cell which is almost 100 to 500 times smaller than the eukaryotic cell. These bacterial cells or these microbial cells, they follow some unique feature. That means they share some important similarity, and this similarity can be, first of all, structural similarity. Any microbe, they do have this membrane or a wall outside. They do have the locomotory organelle in the form of flagella. They do have pili or other projection. There will be nucleic acid. They share a common structural feature, which is the first important unity, first important feature to indicate that microbes have all originated from a simple cell having a nucleus inside. But because of these microbes, at least the prokaryotic microbes, they do not have a well-defined nucleus. They are called pro, meaning primitive, karyon, meaning nucleus. So they are called prokaryote. And this nucleus is dispersed within the cell without any definite membrane. Now coming to the next aspect, that is the metabolic pathways that they follow. The metabolism is the sum total of chemical reaction that takes place within this cell, and this metabolism can be actually catabolism or destructive process, anabolism or building up process. Now initially when we consider, you can see that this is the mitochondria. So this is the site of respiration. You will see that in all prokaryotic organism, mitochondria is absent, but its place is taken up by the mesosome. And the mesosome will also have the same purpose, that is generation of energy, and this generation of energy takes place through respiration. You know, respiration occurs mainly in two phases, and these two phases are glycolysis and Krebs cycle. And as you know, glycolysis is a process which occurs in absence of oxygen, where glucose molecule is converted to pyruvic acid, whereas Krebs cycle, which is conversion of citric acid produced from pyruvic acid via acetyl coenzyme A to a series of organic acid. But their purpose is same, that is generation of energy rich compound. And what are they? They are either ATP or NADPH2. So these compounds are produced in a living cell irrespective of the nature of this cell, that is whether they are prokaryote or eukaryote. And coming to the most important aspect, you can see this Krebs cycle is followed by all living organisms, and they are producing this NADPH, and this NADPH, which is reduced NADP or nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate, is taking place within the F1 particles of the mitochondria. But you will ask me that in bacteria there is no F1 particle. So it occurs within the membrane of the mesosome. But the purpose is same. That is, this particular reduced NADP will be oxidized. And this oxidation process is not a very simple process. It will involve a series of electron carriers present across the membrane. And these electron carriers are mainly divided into at least 4 different complexes. What are they? The NADP complex, the coenzyme Q complex, the FES complex, and the cytochrome A3 or A complex. And ultimately, they will be generating the electron. A part of that electron will move out across the membrane, and as it moves out, it will activate a very complex structure. You can see this club-shaped structure, which is called ATP synthetase. And this club-shaped structure is activating the ATPase enzyme to produce ATP. So now you know that whether it is mesosome or whether it is mitochondria, their function is same, and that is energy generation in the form of ATP molecules. So now we start with the anabolic processes within the living cell of a microbe. The microbes, they produce fatty acid by the same enzyme fatty acid synthetase. The enzyme is same, but the location or the site of production may vary. In the same way, the microbes may produce polypeptide with the help of ribosome and with the same set of processes like the transcription and translation. So this particular anabolic processes will actually result in the increase in the volume of the microbial cell. Now coming to the code of life, which is the nucleic acid. From virus to all other microbes, they have the same pattern of genetic code, that is the arrangement of the nitrogen bases, and that is why the virus may be surviving on other microbial life like bacteriophage surviving on bacteria. In this way, we can see that there is a circular plasmid present in a bacterial cell, and this plasmid can actually be transferred during the process of conjugation from one bacteria to the other, resulting in the modification of that particular bacteria. And this particular transfer is known as horizontal gene transfer. There may be some transmission where there will be one group of organism transmitting a particular gene product to higher organism. And this gene product, as you can see in a paramecium cell shown here, is through the production of kappa particle originally from a bacterial cell. This kappa particle is originating in the paramecium, and after it has been accepted in the cytoplasm, it is transferred via the cytoplasm. Whenever the conjugation process is very sharp, there will be no proper cytoplasmic exchange, so the kappa particle will not be distributed evenly, and they will result in production of killer and sensitive strain in an unequal manner. So this type of transmission is known as vertical transmission, and the genetic material ultimately will result in the modification of the microbe itself. As you can see in this particular phylogenetic tree, there is a single bacteria which is Pseudomonas, but because of this variation, they have created innumerable number of strain and species. And this is how one particular microbe originate as a single piece of microbe, but gradually it modifies and it will produce new species. When we consider the next topic, which is microbial ecology, you will see that they have the same purpose. Same purpose meaning they are sometimes acting as producer in an ecosystem, or sometimes they are acting as definite recycling agent. And this recycling is converting complex nitrogenous or other compounds to relatively simpler substances. And when we see that a particular bacteria is getting into this action of decomposition, we coin a very unique term called bioremediation. Bioremediation is conversion of some complex polluting substance to relatively simpler substances, like heavy metals are removed from nature, or like complex oil is degraded to relatively simpler hydrocarbon. And these microbes, when they perform this type of bioremedial activity, they will get into a different sort of cooperation. And this cooperation or interaction within microbes can be classified as positive and negative interaction. Positive interaction meaning when they are participating towards the benefit of each other. Like say for example, the algae and fungi together will remain in the lichen in the association called mutualism. And this type of association we normally find in protocooperation, that is the rhizosphere organism. But every association is not positive. there may be negative association, and this negative association can be parasitism. That means one particular parasite growing in an animal or growing in an animal microbe. It can be predation. This is a particular Daphnia, which is a zooplankton. It will predate upon different algal members which are commonly known as phytoplankton. So this type of association always participate in nature. Between the same organism, always there is some sort of signaling, and this signaling takes place in microbe, and this signaling is called commonly the quorum sensing. Like you see in our dental plaque, there may be different bacteria colonizing and actually communicating with each other through chemical signals. So that also definitely indicate that microbes may be of various types, but they do exchange chemical signals between themselves. Microbes, in spite of their different nature, they can be controlled by a group of compound called antibiotics. A group of antibiotics which will commonly block protein synthesis is true for any other living organism. That means, say for example, all gram-negative bacteria may be treated by a single antibiotic, or there may be a group of vaccine created against a particular pox virus. So this is how we say the vaccine or antibiotics, they may be chemically different, but they all are used against specific group of bacteria or group of viruses. Now again we must understand that microbes can be of various nature, but they do have some similar pattern. And what is that pattern? They induce infection with the help of certain structure. We call it infection peg, or we call it pili. Whatever may be the cellular projection, their purpose is same, that is to infect. And at the same time, there will be some molecules like protein in the form of toxin, and this toxin will act upon these microbes, other microbes or other higher organisms, and will induce infection. And so we have seen that microbes started their journey as simple membrane bound cell, but they have produced various types. So here lies the diversity, and when we consider the diversity, we must consider what are the different types of microbes. Now the first group which I will show you is the group of algae, and these algae are unique photosynthetic microbes. There may be larger algae, but most of these algae are unicellular or colonial. As you can see here, we are representing a Volvox colony, and this Volvox colony have a unique pattern or aggregation of cell interconnected by cytoplasmic strand, which indicate that they are functionally having some connection. And at the same time, there may be small colonies within this large colony which represent daughter colony. So these organisms, they are producing a colonial group of microbes. And we also have mentioned about the bacteria. I told you these bacteria are unicellular prokaryotic organisms which do not have proper nucleus, but they may be of various types. They may be photosynthetic, they may be saprophytic, they may be parasitic, but all of them, they have a definite cellular pattern that is similar to any other prokaryote. Now coming to a group of microbes which represent this filamentous microscopic structure called mycelia, and this group of microbes are called fungi. And this fungi, as you know, will grow in the soil, will grow in dead and decaying plants and animals, or even can grow in living organisms, indicating infection. But these filamentous structures are interwoven and they produce a compact structure, sometimes in higher forms of fungi, which are commonly known as mushrooms. And these mushrooms, as you know, they may be consumed also. Mushrooms can be very much important for the diet because it has very little amount of fat, and at the same time it has high protein diet.
Sir, why we generally consume white mushrooms
Yeah,
than the colored ones?
this is a good question. Actually, there is no test to determine whether that mushroom is edible or not. So the most important thing is to consume some mushroom which is white in color. Why? Now you see, the mushrooms mostly grow in decaying wood or any cellular substrate where there will be lot of cellulose or pectin or lignin. Now whenever that particular mushroom will produce lot of cellulase or chitinase or pectinase, then all those complex cellulosic material will be totally digested or degraded, and thereby that poisonous component will go, so that white mushroom becomes totally edible. But if that mushroom is colored, what does it mean? Either it has been unable to digest cellulose or pectin totally, or it has produced some colored substance which may not be digestible by human or may not be tolerated by human. So they become inedible or they may become poisonous. Now another group of microbe which we will discuss is this protozoa. Now here you can see that we are seeing the Giardia, which is commonly known as the grand old man of microbial world. Now this protozoa will definitely have a membrane, will have a nucleus, and will have cilia. So protozoa commonly can move around and can induce infection, and very commonly the water of Kolkata city contain large number of amoeba or Giardia. So people living in this city may suffer from diseases which are chronic, causing amoebiasis or giardiasis, right?
Sir,
Yes.
sir, why Giardia is called as grand old man of microbe?
Yeah, you can see that this is a microscopic picture of Giardia, where there will be a single cell with a short neck and host of cilia. When you look it carefully, you will find that this is a man with two eyes, a bald head, and some beard. So it looks like a grand old man, so it is called a grand old man of microbes. But this particular Giardia is causing infection in the intestine, human small intestine, and it is a stubborn type of infection which will require long-term medication. So it looks like a grand old man, but it is very much harmful. Now we come to the next group, which is commonly known as helminth. Now you see, helminth, the group is represented by certain worms, and these worms are of two types, the flatworm and the roundworm. The flatworm, they are represented by the Platyhelminthes, and the roundworm are represented by the Aschelminthes. The most important feature present in these worms are that they are parasitic, they are present in the human intestine, so naturally they will not get any oxygen supply, and as because they are not getting any oxygen supply, they survive as anaerobic organism. As you can see here, there are examples of nematode or roundworm. You can see that there is a filamentous structure, and there will be a tubular structure which is their alimentary canal. So on one side there will be the mouth, on the other side there will be the reproductive pore. But definitely these microbes are sometimes very large. You can see the roundworm, which is commonly called the Ascaris, it can be visible to the naked eye, but there may be very small microfilaria causing the infection of filariasis is not visible to the naked eye, and they are transmitted by some mosquito. You know that mosquito is Culex fatigans, which result in the spreading of this disease of filariasis. In other words, it is also called elephantiasis, because the person's leg is swelling like an elephant's foot, and it is because of the fact that all the lymphatic channels are blocked and the leg becomes very thick and fat. Okay, so these are the different helminth forms, and these infections are treated by the anthelmintic treatment or any compound that kill this particular infection. It is always suggested that because we suffer from mixed infection, on a regular basis we must go for this anthelmintic treatment so that our intestine is free from these microbial forms. We come to the last important form of microbe, which is in the form of these viruses. Now viruses are not true cellular organism. They represent a group of organism which is intermediate between living and non-living. Why living? Because these organisms are producing infection. They contain nucleic acid. They contain the same genetic code. But why non-living then? Because they don't have any cell. What are they having? They are only having an outer coat. You can see the outer coat and the nucleic acid inside. This is a bacteriophage. What is that? a virus that kills bacteria. And this bacteriophage is having a specific head and a long tail, and this tail is formed of helical protein, whereas the head is formed of capsid-like protein having specific geometrical structure. And you could see this particular head is represented by a 20-sided polygon. So we call it icosahedron. So a bacteriophage will commonly attack a particular bacterial cell, but it might kill it, it might not kill it. When it kills it, it is called the lysis of the cell, and the cycle is called the lytic cycle. But sometimes it will not kill it. The DNA or the genetic material will enter into the bacterial cell and will continue to replicate along with the bacterial DNA, and this cycle is called the lysogenic cycle. The last important aspect that we are going to consider is the way we name them, that is nomenclature of microbe. Like any other living organism, the nomenclature follows a specific epithet and a generic epithet. So we all follow a binomial nomenclature, and this binomial nomenclature is also having the author citation, that is the name of the author who reported it for the first time. So coming to Escherichia coli, we call it Escherichia, which is the generic name, coli being the specific name, and we all have some abbreviation. So the short name or the nickname is E. coli. So we can see that microbes started from a simple cell. They have developed certain commonality and they have produced different diversified forms, but yet they are all united because of certain typical similarity features, and they are also named in the same way. So students, we conclude this opening lecture, and what we have actually learned today, we have learned how microbes have originated in this world and how they have developed into structural complexity, yet how they are similar with respect to their cell structure, with respect to their genetic code, with respect to their exchange of genetic fragments, and of course with the respect of their infectability, interaction and control mechanism. At the same time, we have also seen that how microbes are performing together in the development and betterment of nature, and in what way actually microbes are playing a crucial role in the systemic formation of the nature. And we also have known the different types of microbes, starting from algae, fungi, bacteria, virus, parasites like protozoa, and also the nematodes or the helminths. And the last thing which we come to know from this lecture is the way we name them. I have told you that we have named them in a simple binomial nomenclature like any other living organism, with a generic name starting with a capital letter and a specific name starting with a small letter, and it is always in Latin like any other living organism.